I already eat a lot of eggs, so I thought, what would happen if I removed everything else? And I only ate eggs for 3 days. We've seen this challenge many times across the internet. I have never tried it for myself to see if it makes any difference to anything in my world. So let's have a go. 3 days, lots of eggs, and let's see what the results are. If you've been in the carnivore space, keto space for any length of time, you will have seen the egg challenge, and I will find who developed that. But the egg challenge basically is about eating nothing but eggs for 3 days. Luckily, here in Bangkok, eggs are cheap. They come in packs of 10, which in Australia they come in packs of 12. But they're pretty cheap here and the quality is amazing. And I already eat tons of eggs. So I figured, what if I take it to the next level and just ate eggs? Not sure what's going to happen, but here's my reasoning why. So what exactly is an egg fast? I have seen this online in many ways, shapes and forms from many different people. And I had a moment the other day where I thought, I need to reset after my holidays and everything else. I need to kind of get back on the straight and narrow. So I thought doing an egg fast might be great to cull those sugar cravings. It's super easy. Eggs are super cheap here in Bangkok, so win-win-win. And I thought, it would just be interesting to try because I like trying new things, right? So the egg fast was developed by somebody named Jimmy Moore back in around 2010. His platform is Livin' La Vida Low Carb. So he is the original creator. As far as I can tell, I've done a little bit of digging, but as far as I can tell, he is the original creator of this protocol. He came up with it because of the particular mix of amino acids with choline in the eggs, which has the effect of breaking stubborn weight loss plateaus. Now, I'm not exactly in a plateau, although maybe I am. I've been around the same weight since I had my surgery, and I'm trying to get down to that last 5 kilos that I want to lose. That was my goal after weight loss surgery. Would I ever potentially get there? Maybe not, but I seem to be slowly getting there. So I thought, because of the sugar that I had in Hanoi and because my weight is kind of staying the same, I thought, why not give this a shot and see if I can break through what my lowest has been so far. Okay, let's talk about the rules of an egg fast in case you've never heard of it. I had to go searching for this as well. So the rules are really, really simple, which I like. I like simplicity, and it's one of my words for the year because any way that I can make my life simple has got to make things easier, right? So the core rules are you eat only eggs, but there are a few little things that you need to keep in mind with that. You have to eat a minimum 6 eggs a day. And that's a rule because it's really easy when you go into ketosis and when you're eating protein like that to just not get hungry. And that's often a case for myself over the years with somebody with thyroid disease, is that I often don't get hungry. So you've got to have a minimum 6 eggs to have the right mix of choline and amino acids in the right amounts to be able to facilitate the breaking of this plateau. I took it one step further and thought, how many eggs do I need to eat to get to around 100 grams of protein a day? 3 eggs in a sitting for me is comfortable after gastric sleeve. I've been eating that for quite some time. Every now and again, I can do 4, but you never know on any given day after gastric sleeve what you're going to be able to eat and what you're not going to be able to eat. That doesn't change. 3 years out, some days I can eat a lot more, some days I can only eat a little less, right? So you just never know. So I thought it would be great to get in 100 grams of protein just eating eggs, but I think that was pushing it. So now I'm sitting at the point of having 3 eggs 4 times a day, 3 at the very least. So that gives me 12 eggs a day and at around 8 grams of protein per egg at this size. A normal size would be about 6 grams, but they're really super huge eggs here. So I looked it up and I'm going to say it's about 8 grams of protein per egg. That still puts me at 96 grams per day as long as I have those 12 eggs. So 3 eggs 4 times a day, if I can manage that. But again, I'm not going to be really hard on myself. And I'm actually officially on day 3, although it is day 2. But I will explain that very shortly. So I decided to start this part of explaining it to you once I was in it so that I could sort of start to give you any guidance if you decide you want to have a go at this too. Now, the other rules include 1 tablespoon of fat for every egg you eat. So this can be coconut oil, grass-fed butter, olive oil, that kind of thing. No seed oils, please. And I actually cook the eggs in my butter and then I put a little knob of butter on top once it's cooked. That's just the way I'm doing it, but you do you if you have a better way or a way that makes it tastier or easier for you to eat it. There is a cheese allowance, and this now explains some of the videos I have seen where they've made recipes out of cheese and eggs. And I'm like, I thought it was an egg fast. So you can have cheese in it, and I'm assuming that's the fat component you're adding to that. But for me, I'm not good with cheese. And I know that because even though I don't snore anymore, that stopped within 2 weeks after my gastric sleeve, I snore if I eat cheese. I know this because my husband tells me. I tend to avoid cheese simply because I know it must inflame me, it must gunk me up that I snore every time I eat it. So I've decided specifically for me for this egg fast, I'm not having the cheese component. It is optional from what I can understand reading everything. So therefore it's not necessary for the nutritional components or for the weight loss components or anything like that. What I also understand with lipedema is that dairy is not a great thing. And don't forget, this dude developed this more for weight loss stalls, not with lipedema in mind. So I think many of you out there with lipedema are actually reducing your dairy components. So don't feel like you need to add that in because I haven't and I feel fine. Now, there's this very specific thing about timing, and I think I know why. And you've got to eat your first egg within 30 minutes of rising. And I would say that is to calm down your adrenals and to make your whole body feel safe. Because when we eat protein within an hour of rising, that's what it does. It tells your body, oh, we're safe, we're not fasting, we're not in famine mode, we're good to go. So I'm going to say that's what that's about. Then you're going to eat a egg-based meal every 3 to 5 hours. Doesn't matter whether you're hungry or not, you need to eat another egg-based meal, which is why I chose 4 meals a day at 3 eggs, because then that I'm eating within those time frames. And you need to stop eating eggs about 3 hours before you go to bed. That's pretty normal for me. So we would eat around 5:30, don't judge me. We're early to bed, early risers. And so therefore, by the time we go to bed, 8:30, 9 o'clock, it's 3 hours have passed. So those parameters I've ticked off. Drinks, you can have water, coffee, or tea, as long as the coffee and tea are unsweetened and unadulterated, so no milk either. And staying hydrated is crucial. Now, as it happens, I'm running another challenge, which you might have seen on my live a couple of weeks ago. And that is my 3 litres a day of water. So I know I'm hydrated. So that's all good. I've just stopped having my sodium electrolytes for the 3 days of this egg fast so that there's no other things in it that might affect the trial or the outcome or the challenge, or just to see what happens, right? So that's the rules of this challenge according to the original creator, and that's what I decided to go with, minus the dairy. let's talk about the pros and cons of doing such a protocol. The pros, definitely reeling in the sugar cravings really super quick. I hate drawing things out when I'm removing something from my diet. I like to get in, have the pain for a day or two of, oh, I really want some sugar. I find the quickest way I can get into that is the best for me. So the pros of doing a 3-day egg fast is definitely culling those sugar cravings super quick. You don't tend to want to snack because you're full all the time. You don't want more eggs. That's your only choice. So you just don't think about snacking. It breaks plateaus. That's a pro of this protocol and why I'm doing it. Well, half the reason is that, and the other half is to cut those sugar cravings super quick. Because you're cutting out everything except protein, although there is a minuscule amount of carbs in eggs, but for the most part, you get into ketosis really easily. You're not having processed foods. You're not having any other mindless junk that might ordinarily creep in. So it's very clean. It's very easy. And that's the final pro in my world. It's so simple and so cheap for me. If I wanted to do this in Australia, not so cheap. But here, eggs are really cheap. They're really fresh. They turn over really quickly in the supermarket, and I'm yet to have a yucky egg or a bad egg that have to throw out. Simplicity wise, and I'm all about the simples, it's just so easy. You don't have to think, okay, what am I eating? Oh, eggs. Okay, so to me, sometimes it's not just about making things simple to get your eating back on track. It's also making things simple to give yourself a bit of a break in your brain. And that's what I like about this. It's just that I just don't have to think about things. And if you have a lot of work on, I have a lot of work going on at the moment, I just don't have to think about things. And I love that. Oh, and the bonus pro, I guess, is my husband can't cook, and this is probably one of the few things that he can cook very well. So that's the other pro. Okay, the cons to doing a 3-day egg protocol or egg fast would be no fiber, no other micronutrients. I'm not too worried about that because as somebody who eats high animal based, I don't get a lot of fiber anyway. So that's never kind of bothered me. And honestly, anything that you do for 3 days is not going to hurt you long term. And that's the beauty of this. If you go on holidays, you can sometimes live off utter crap for 3 days. We don't worry about that, do we? I went to Hanoi a week or two ago and I ate bread every single day for 5, 6 days. Did I worry about that? No. So I'm not worried about having nothing else in my diet except for eggs for only 3 days. I think while that's a con, and it may be a con for you depending on what other health issues you have got going on. Remember, this is just what I'm trying. If you want to try this, you need to see your people that know your specific health concerns. But for me, it wasn't an issue for only 3 days. Now, doing this does lack vitamin C and magnesium. Now, I'm still having my vitamin C drink every single morning, so I'm not worried about the vitamin C. Now, another con is that the weight loss from this could be just water-based. And I would say to that, yes, if you're already eating a lot of carbs, then yep, if you go to any kind of high protein diet or low carb diet, you will have an initial flush of weight loss, and that is water because our body holds 4 grams of water for every gram of carbohydrate that we consume. So, of course, you're already not holding the water from the carbs. Now, the other con, and why my days are a little bit mixed up, is social friction, meaning you really can't go out during these 3 days. You can, but you really don't want to. Okay, so you've got to pick 3 days where it's not an issue for you to not leave the house, for you to be able to just eat your eggs with nobody judging, nobody criticizing, or anything like that. Now, here's where I went wrong. I just decided, oh, I'm going to do this. Awesome. And I jumped right in. However, I didn't think about that one of my responsibilities with work is a very early morning call for me, because the person I do this with is in another part of the world, And I have to get up at 1 a.m. so that I've got a good hour or two to wake up, be alert, be on point for that call. And I always have a very strong coffee to do that. And that coffee is sweet. It is sweet, it is milky, it is hot. I have to enjoy it because I'm rewarding myself for getting up at 1 a.m. when my husband is fast asleep. I need that coffee. And I say I need that. I don't have coffee every day for a really, really good reason. And that is simply so that coffee works for me when I have to get up at really strange times of day. So I use it as a tool. So that night I went to go to bed after my first day of eating all the eggs and drinking all the water and being really pure and sitting there and not having any dessert and all that kind of thing. And then I went, oh no, I have to get up at 1 a.m. in the morning. What about my coffee? And I wasn't going to not have that because it's what works for me to get me moving. And so I got up at 1 a.m. I had my coffee. As I was having my coffee, and this is what happens, this is the slippery slope, right? There was pomelo already in the fridge, ready to go, sitting there in the container. So I had a few pieces of pomelo as well. If you don't know what pomelo is, it's a type of grapefruit here in Asia. I'm not sure I've seen it in Australia. Maybe it's some of the really super fancy grocery stores. You might get it in America in the same sort of stores, but it's an Asian fruit and it's a massive grapefruit. However, it doesn't taste like grapefruit. It's kind of a cross between a ruby grapefruit, so a little bit sweeter, and an orange. It's got a sweetness to it, but it's not overpowering. Anywho, I had the coffee and the pomelo at 1 o'clock in the morning. But here's what I also do when things like that and when life happens. At 6 o'clock in the morning, when I was finished my work and I went into the kitchen, I kept going. However, I reset to day one again. I went, okay, no, this is day one again, starting now. So while I'm on I have to look at my notes, day 3 officially, I'm actually on day 2 for the purposes of this challenge. So keep in mind when you choose to do this. So if you're working, you're going to have to pick a weekend or a long weekend to be able to do it without having to worry about other things like you may need coffee or being around people that are eating all of the nice things that might make you crack. There we go again. And so just keep that in mind. Because it's only 3 days, it's not so hard to find that time. And potentially, if you did it over a weekend, and then on the Monday, how many people are dieting on a Monday anyway because they've had a blowout on the weekend, right? So you could just skip lunch or have lunch quietly under you can't skip lunch because of the 3 to 5 hourly. Just take boiled eggs with you or go to a cafe that offers all day breakfast if you have lunch out with colleagues and that sort of thing, and just get scrambled eggs and ask for them to cook it in butter. Be sure of doing that. So it's potentially quite doable. It's just you've got to rethink it, whereas you can't just sort of jump into it like I did, going, oh, I'm going to try this right now. I'm trying it right now. Don't do that. So day one, and nothing changes for me. I always have 3 eggs for breakfast. I'm wondering if I can push it to 4 eggs, but I guess that the idea is that I can just eat eggs whenever I like, whenever I get hungry. So I'm just going to stick with my normal 3 eggs. Now, I've seen other people who've gotten really sick of the eggs after 3 days, so I hope that doesn't happen to me because they are a mainstay in my eating world. But we'll see how we go and we'll see if it makes any difference at all. I have weighed myself, measured myself, all the usual measurement parameters, and I've written down how I feel, that kind of thing, what worries me, and we'll see what comes out at the end. So, bon appetit. I'm at day 2/3. So on my first day, I've got my list in front of me, at 8:30 a.m. I ate 3 eggs. At 11 a.m. I ate 4 eggs. At 2:30 p.m. I ate 3 eggs, and at 5:30 p.m. I ate another 3 eggs. So that's 13 eggs in total at 8 grams of protein per very large egg. That took me to a total of 104 grams of protein. Amazing, right? So I was pretty happy with that I hit 100 grams of protein and that I had eggs 4 times during the day. I didn't really have any issues. I didn't feel like I was going without. I actually felt super full because it was very satiating and I just felt like I was always eating. So I didn't have any problems there. Yes, I felt like I was missing out when hubby was having dessert and I was not. But again, 3 days, it kind of like it's not so hard in your head to sort of go, it's only 3 days, it's fine. So that was okay. However, the next morning, admittedly, it was 1 a.m. when I weighed myself. So I haven't had a full night's sleep. And I don't know if you've weighed yourself after nights that you've had a bad sleep, but I always either put on a little bit or I haven't lost anything after a bad night's sleep. And that's because that's when our body gets a chance to detox and flush things out and do the things it needs to do. That's why sleep is so important in our world. So admittedly, it was 1 a.m. when I weighed myself, but I'd put on a kilo. So I was just like, really? Really? I wasn't happy. And it wasn't that I wasn't happy about putting on a kilo because I'm at the lowest weight I've ever been, right? So it wasn't so much about that. It was about the effort that I went to and the things I went without. And I put on a kilo. Anywho, that's okay. I kept going. As I said, I swung straight back into it and I didn't just keep going that was the only 3 days. I just reset and started day 2 from 6 a.m. and just kept going. So day 2 yesterday, I had total of 11 eggs. So you can see I've gone down because I wasn't hungry. So it gets tricky. You've got to kind of force yourself to eat when you're eating this way. And it's the same with pure carnivore and high protein. You literally are not hungry, you are satiated. So that's why it has a minimum in the rules of 6 eggs a day, because that's what you need to sustain yourself over the 3 days. So 11 eggs, which was still 88 grams of protein, not the 100 that I'd like to hit. So today, on day 2, officially day 2, I am doing better and I'm making more of an effort to get back to the 12 or 13 eggs so that I'm around that 100 grams of protein a day. Now, the upside is I had 12 hours of sleep last night. And that often happens on the day after I have the early morning calls. Sometimes I have a nap during the day, but sometimes I don't have time to have a nap during the day. And yesterday was such a day. And so by the time I got to bedtime, I was literally in bed like 6 o'clock or something crazy. So I was so tired and I got in a full 12 hours sleep. Amazing. And it showed up on the scales. I'd lost that kilo I put on. So we'll see what happens tomorrow and the next day because I'm curious as to whether or not it helps break through where I'm sort of sitting around. Good morning. It is officially day 3, my last day. And this morning I woke up with a tremendous pain in here. Don't know what it was. I did a coffee enema, for those of you who know that I do that, and it went away. So I'm not sure what it was. Maybe it was a blockage in the bowel. Maybe it was detox from the eggs. I have no idea. But it's gone, thank goodness. This morning, yay, the scales were down again. And I will reveal all of that at the end, what I actually ended up losing or gaining at the end of this. So tomorrow morning I will find that out. I am on breakfast for day 3 and I've put in 4 eggs today. I actually meant to put in 3 eggs because I seem to be able to do 3 meals a day at 3 eggs and 1 meal at 4 eggs, but I usually make that 4 eggs around, I don't know, the early afternoon meal. So I'm not sure why I did it without thinking. So we'll see if I can actually finish it. As I said, with gastric sleeve, you can never know on any given day what you can fit in. But so far I've fitted in There's been maybe 2 occasions where I've had 2 mouthfuls left, and that's okay, that's fine. So far I've pretty much fit it all in. So I've hit my protein goals, and this is the last day. So I don't feel hungry. That's normal. That's what this does. I don't feel like I need desserts and sugar. When hubby was having his dessert last night, I actually just didn't care. So from my perspective, that's actually what I was hoping for, is to cull the sugar a little bit and do it in the quickest possible way so that you get through the cravings and the going without attitude really swiftly. I had to get a little bit more specific about making sure I added butter. I don't know if you can see, there's a couple of knobs of butter in here. Because I wasn't eating enough. You're meant to have 1 tablespoon for every egg, and I was putting like 2 knobs of butter no matter how many eggs I had. A knob is probably less than a tablespoon, to be honest, because I just cut them up into pieces that are easy for me to grab out of the fridge and throw on the fry pan, because I like to be organised like that. I don't want to faff around with cutting a bit of butter off every time I cook. So I've always done that. We'll see what happens by adding more butter. Our mindset, our belief systems tell us that, oh, more butter is going to add weight, more butter is going to increase cholesterol and block our arteries. And we've grown up in my generation believing all of this kind of thing, right? So it's actually a hard thing to add butter like this. It doesn't matter if it tastes good to you. Like, it tastes good to me. I like cold butter. I'm not a fan of the melted butter. So for me, it's still, I can still see that in the back of my head, I still have those belief systems when I throw it in. And that's why I've only been throwing in 2 little things of butter instead of a tablespoon for every egg, is because there's that belief system still there, which is why I always talk about doing the inner work. And if I need to, I think I'll have to continue to do the inner work, because real butter is fine. That's what I'm trying to believe, and that's what I do believe as a whole, is that real butter is perfectly fine for us. And it makes sense, okay? It's only the processed stuff that, and the seed oils and everything that's convenient, convenience is killing us, that comes in, that I think still messes with my head a little bit. So that's where I'm at on the morning of day 3. Let's talk about transitioning off an egg fast. Sunday morning will be the first day that I go back to normal eating, whatever that is for you, whatever it is for me. It's generally high protein. It's always eggs still for breakfast, so that's okay. So if you've been following a standard diet, if you've had weight loss surgery and you are still super great with eating anything, you can't jump straight back to eating anything after this egg fast. It'll be too much of a jolt to your body and it won't know what to do with things. And the results will be the scales just going straight back up again, okay, which will have made the whole 3 days pretty pointless. So we kind of want to go in slowly, slowly, gently, gently, which is one of my themes for this year of myself, and phase out the egg fast. So you probably would need to have eggs for breakfast and lunch, and then have something normal for dinner, or in whatever, ratio that you want to do that in. Maybe it's lunch that you want to have something different and have the eggs the same at dinner, because then that helps you with sleep and not having a full load on your body when your body hasn't digested much for the last 3 days. So, and it's sleep when it does all the cleaning and that sort of thing. So the least amount that it has to digest before your sleep is probably a good thing. So when I transition back, I am going to do the breakfast and dinner as eggs and have something normal for lunch. Haven't figured that out yet. I'm always straight and narrow in what I'm doing now. I worry about that later, but there will be a transition period. It's actually a really good time also. It's like an elimination diet. If you've only eaten eggs for 3 days, it's really good to bring one thing back in at a time and see if anything spikes on the scales. So it's a really good way to test things if you're interested in testing something. So, avocado For example, say you want to test avocado and how your body reacts to it, bring avocado in only at lunchtime or at dinner time, whatever you choose to do, and see how that affects you. And I may do that, but I've been pretty good. My vertigo's gone away. So I'm going to say that there's nothing in particular that I feel like I need to test. So, but I will decide that on Sunday. But definitely the first meal back on Sunday morning will still be eggs. And then come lunchtime, I know I will enjoy something else. So let's skip to the end. My egg fast finished a few days ago now. So I'm doing the final roundup of what I finished with food-wise, how much I ate, that kind of thing. So I'm going to read out to you my little list of what I ate on day 2, 3, and 4. On day 1, I ended up with 13 eggs. On day 2, I ate 11 eggs at 88 grams of protein. On day 3, I ate, oh, I didn't write it down. I ate 4, 3, 6, 10 eggs. And on day 4, now remember, it was meant to be 3 days, but I had the coffee on day 1, so I added another day and started again. On the final day, I actually ate more, 11 eggs. I went back to 11 eggs. But the final meal at 6 o'clock, I made myself 2 eggs and I didn't really even eat all of them. So I'm going to say maybe 10 eggs again on the final day. So what were the actual results? So I took 3 different measuring parameters, I guess you would say. 1, my weight. Number 2 was measurements. And number 3, sugar cravings. Let's hit the sugar cravings straight up. It culled them. It really did cull them. And now I have brought sugar back in, but it's not nearly what I was eating beforehand. So I've had a win there. And at this point in my life, I don't need to remove all sugar. To be honest, my weight is stable, my measurements are stable. So I can kind of enjoy my life. However, it is always something I am watching like a hawk, because the sugar's not just about the weight that comes on. The sugar is also about your health and inflammation and keeping hormones stable, because insulin, which is produced in response to sugar, is a hormone. So all of those still come into play with lipedema. So I'm always still watching them. But we need to have joy. We're humans. I don't do any other things that bring me joy, apart from the fact that I live in an amazing country and I get to explore and do things like that. But part of that exploration and joy is eating the food here and having treats and things like that. But it's certainly the 3-day egg fast has helped me to sort of cull that in and rein that in, which was the idea of it. Next, we have weight. And as a whole, I went up and down. So in the end, I lost 1.15 kilos, which doesn't seem a lot. When you've lost 60 kilos like I have, losing just a little bit over a kilo for 3 days of eating only one thing seems like little reward. But luckily, half the reason I did it was for the sugar craving thing. So that's just me. That's where I'm at with weight, right? So 1.15, that's the God honest truth of how I went weight wise. Measurements wise, a little bit different. I actually lost a total of 22 centimeters off my body, which is just over 8.5 inches. Now, what was interesting is most of this weight or measurements I lost in the lower half of my body. So the still lipedema affected part of my body. So that was truly interesting. And most of it from my knees and my calves. So I did nothing else. I did no other weird exercise that I might normally bring in, or everything else was stock standard and kept the same. So I found it really interesting that while the weight didn't really change much, that the measurements around my knees and my calves did. Slight amounts in other areas and my waist, but mostly it was the lower legs that lost the most weight here. So that was really interesting to me. So finally, would I do it again? Yeah, I probably would. If I felt like I needed to reset the sugars, or I can't think of any other reason actually. Maybe if I started to put on weight again and was starting to think, oh, the carnivore's not enough. But until that happens, I'm not sure. I didn't notice any other changes with pain, inflammation, or anything like that, simply because I don't have that anyway. So I didn't gain any pain or gain any inflammation. I didn't lose any because I didn't have any. So there was no other reason really at this point for me. And that's what I'm always talking about. How does it affect you personally? You might do this egg fast, lose 10 kilos, lose some pain, and go, wow, I'm doing this, once every 3 months to reset things. Great, awesome. Always when we're doing challenges and testing things on ourselves, being our own crash test dummy, as I like to call myself, I just need to know, how does this affect me? Would I do it again? Can I put it in my toolbox of things that I can use in the future if things go a little bit out of whack? And so far, maybe. Maybe I'd use it again, maybe not. It's not a definite in my toolbox, but I'm really glad I gave it a go.